Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, Audra Charles Zuleika Silver might follow Phyllis Summers' lead and plot her own abduction, deliberately staging a disappearance so meticulously crafted that Claire Newman, Haley Aaron, becomes the prime suspect, a scheme born from a toxic mixture of paranoia, vengeance, and desperation as the feud between the two women spirals far beyond petty rivalry and into psychological warfare that threatens to engulf everyone around them. Audra has been whispering for months that Claire is unstable, unpredictable, and still carrying the monstrous impulses that once led her to nearly wipe out her entire family under Aunt Jordan's manipulation. And although Claire has made admirable strides toward reclaiming her identity, autonomy, and sense of worth, Audra deliberately stokes the embers of guilt and shame whenever possible, pushing Claire's buttons in public and private until she finally snaps. When Claire slapped Audra across the face at society, believing she had exhausted every other option to make the woman back off, Audra knew she had found her leverage. She had baited Claire, predicted her explosion like a mathematician anticipating the inevitable sum of an equation, and when Claire grabbed her by the throat during a later argument, Audra's mind instantly leapt to the next logical manipulation. Claire would make the perfect villain if Audra needed to disappear, hide, or reinvent herself again as she once did in Los Angeles. Audra has been muttering that Claire is on the edge of another breakdown, reminding Kyle Newman, Michael Mueller, Sharon Rosales, and anyone else in earshot that Claire's mental health history is a ticking time bomb. The truth is that every provocation Audra makes pushes Claire deeper into self-doubt, and Claire, emotionally raw and furious that Audra keeps weaponizing her trauma, begins to lash out before thinking through long-term consequences. It becomes increasingly clear that Audra awakens something volatile in Claire, a combustible heat that goes beyond what Claire once attempted with her family, and instead taps into years of buried shame, fear, and anger that Claire has tried desperately to suppress. That is exactly what Audra wants. Like Aunt Jordan before her, Audra has a talent for finding the seams in a person's psyche and prying them open. Though she doesn't share Jordan's motive of punishing the Newmans, she shares the psychological cruelty that made Jordan so effective at manipulation. The feud is no longer merely a conflict. It is a slow-burn psychological detonation. Holden Novak, Nathan Owens, is one of the few who senses how far Audra is willing to go. Audra confides in him that Claire will not be dealt with lightly, and that she refuses to let Claire win, even if it means burning bridges, breaking alliances, or revisiting the darkest parts of her past in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, Claire and Kyle Newman join forces, recognizing that Audra's influence in Genoa City, both professionally and socially, is a growing threat neither of them can eliminate alone. Kyle, who has suffered from Audra's deceptions firsthand, believes that exposing her LA secrets might finally tip the balance and force Audra out of town, but Audra has anticipated this too. She has documents, recordings, and carefully crafted narratives, ready to twist any assault against her into something she can use. Claire, consumed by urgency to defend herself and protect her relationship with Kyle, risks leaning too far into reckless decision-making. Every time Claire grows emotional or defensive around Audra, it plays into Audra's narrative. And now the idea has begun forming in Audra's mind. What if she could go further? What if she could not only escape the tightening noose around her own secrets, but also destroy Claire in one decisive blow? If Claire could be framed for a violent act, an attack, an abduction, or even a staged death, then Claire's past combined with her recent aggressive moments would make her the perfect suspect. And so the whispers begin. Audra considering staging her own disappearance by planting blood, clothing, or a misleading trail of physical evidence. She recalls how Phyllis faked her death, how Diane Jenkins once vanished and returned, how the forest of Genoa City has seen more buried secrets than any courtroom. Claire wouldn't stand a chance against that kind of setup. Audra knows that if she goes through with this, Claire would almost certainly be arrested, institutionalized, or forced to battle for her freedom for months or years. But Audra isn't thinking about morality. She's thinking about survival. Her secrets in LA, the men she deceived, the contracts she sabotaged, the illegal partnerships she allegedly brokered, are close to resurfacing, especially now that Kyle and Claire are actively digging. With the holidays approaching and tensions in Genoa City already high, Audra believes that now is the perfect moment to vanish, because everyone will be distracted with family, traditions, and celebrations. And crucially, at Christmas people are more prone to nostalgia, sentimentality, and emotional reasoning, the conditions most favorable to misdirection. Audra imagines the headlines, the panic search parties, Kyle's horrified expression, Claire's trembling hands as detectives question her, the Newmans whispering about mental health evaluations and past crimes. It is all too tempting. Spoilers for the upcoming 3 weeks of The Young and the Restless from December 8th to December 26th confirm that the storyline will reach a shocking crescendo as Kyle and Claire contemplate an assassination plot. Though not in the literal sense, but rather in the sense of obliterating Audra's credibility, influence, and social standing in one decisive move. Meanwhile, the show gears up for the 20th anniversary celebration of Michael Baldwin, Christian LeBlanc, and Lauren Fenmore Baldwin, Tracy E. Bregman, an emotional centerpiece airing December 9th. Kane Ashby, Billy Flynn, simultaneously promises to destroy Phyllis Summers' newest Jabot takeover scheme, and toss her out of the professional hierarchy for good. He invites Lily Winters, Crystal Khalil, to the Abbott Communications launch party in the same breath, injecting a splash of romantic tension into a week already brimming with conflict. Billy Abbott, Jason Thompson, and Sally Spectra, Courtney hope their second relaunch party will succeed, even as Phyllis, scorned, fiery, and in full sabotage mode, threatens to derail everything in classic Phyllis fashion. At the same time, Victor Newman, Eric Braeden, returns to Genoa City with his family after temporarily neutralizing Matt Clark, also known as Mitch Bacall, Roger Howarth, in Los Angeles. Victor intends to refocus on Jabot, unaware that Jack Abbott, Peter Bergman, may strike first with a bold counterattack. Sienna Bacall, Tamara Braun, travels to the city to be with Noah Newman, Lucas Adams, defying Victor's offer and stirring tension among the Newmans, especially since Noah vowed to protect her from Matt, who remains a dire threat despite Victor's intervention. Noah considers bringing Sienna to the Newman ranch, believing it is the safest place in town. That idea becomes even more compelling after Audra runs into Noah, panicked and furious to cross paths with someone who knows one version of her truth she has worked hard to bury. Meanwhile, Sharon interrogates Sienna about her real motives for being with Noah, while Nick Newman promises to protect Sharon from Matt, leading some to speculate about a potential reunion as winter deepens. Holden and Audra privately decide to maintain their alliance to keep their mutual secrets under wraps, and Matt Clark continues plotting ways to re-establish his power. Spoilers hint that Matt might bide his time until after Christmas, letting holiday spirits soften guards before his strike. Everything escalates when Audra learns that Kyle and Claire have officially teamed up against her. Her fury is volcanic. She accuses them both of betrayal, obsession, and targeting her unfairly, all while she crafts her vanishing act in the background. During the week of December 22nd to 26th, Victor and Nikki Newman receive a heartwarming Christmas message, leaving viewers wondering which couples will share mistletoe moments this year. Sharon and Nick appear especially poised for a nostalgic reconnection. But under the sparkle of holiday lights, Claire Newman's world is ready to shatter. Audra intends to disappear, and she intends for Claire to be blamed. Whether Claire will be institutionalized, imprisoned, or rescued by Kyle is unclear, but spoilers tease that Claire may eventually be cleared, though not before Audra crosses a line she can never uncross, one that may trigger her final downfall. With secrets closing in, enemies multiplying, and holiday chaos erupting across Genoa City, Audra knows her time is limited. The only question now is whether her plan will succeed, or whether she will be unmasked before her staged disappearance puts an innocent woman behind bars. As Audra Charles pushes forward with her sinister plan, Genoa City begins to feel the tremors of a psychological earthquake that no one fully understands yet, and the deeper she descends into this performance of manipulation, the more tangled the web becomes, stretching across the Newmans, the Abbotts, the Rosales family, and even reaching into the lives of characters who have barely crossed paths with her, but now find themselves pulled into her gravity because chaos has a way of expanding, until it touches every corner of the canvas. Audra spends nights obsessively mapping her escape, drawing diagrams of where she will leave her belongings, how long she needs to stay hidden, and what pieces of evidence must be planted to make Claire appear guilty beyond reasonable doubt. She keeps telling herself this is necessary, a preemptive strike, a final act of self-preservation, but underneath that justification lies a darker truth. She enjoys the process, the control, the sense of superiority it gives her. She watches Claire unravel inch by inch, predicting every emotional explosion with clinical precision, and it strengthens Audra's conviction that Claire is the perfect target. Meanwhile, Claire Newman senses something wrong in the air, something she can't articulate, a heaviness that follows her like a shadow stretching longer and darker with each passing day. Kyle tries to reassure her that exposing Audra's past will be enough to force her out of town, but Claire feels dread crawling under her skin, a creeping intuition that Audra is planning something on a scale neither of them has anticipated. She begins having nightmares again, visions of police sirens, handcuffs, shadowy interrogation rooms, and whispers of her past mistakes echoing around her like a broken carousel. Even Noah notices Claire's growing anxiety when she runs into him at Crimson Lights, though neither mentions Audra by name. Meanwhile, Audra rehearses her disappearance with the kind of precision a stage actor uses before a major performance. She practices leaving bruises on her own neck using makeup, studies old crime scene photographs online to understand how staged evidence should look, and drafts a letter that appears to implicate Claire, but knows better than to leave anything too obvious. Subtlety is key. She recalls how Phyllis faked her death and nearly framed Diane Jenkins, noting every mistake Phyllis made so she can avoid them. Audra even contemplates temporarily relocating to a remote cabin Holden, once used for business meetings, a place so secluded and off-grid that no one would think to search there. Her thought process becomes increasingly paranoid, increasingly methodical, as she considers numerous backup plans that include everything from anonymously mailing clues to detectives to staging items on the Newman Ranch property, where Claire sometimes walks alone. But what Audra does not fully anticipate is how many variables she cannot control. For one, Kyle is becoming more suspicious of Audra's behavior each time he crosses paths with her. He notices her jumpiness, her sudden emotional fluctuations, her fixation on Claire's temper. He starts to sense she's trying to set Claire up, though he cannot yet prove it. He mentions his concerns to Summer, who warns him that Audra is capable of much worse than framing someone. She's seen Audra ruin lives before and insists that they tread carefully. Meanwhile, Sharon picks up on Claire's emotional instability and suspects that Audra is antagonizing her intentionally. She counsels Claire to stay calm, to not engage, to walk away whenever possible. Advice Claire tries to follow but constantly fails at, because Audra's taunts are too sharp, too personal, too specifically engineered to hit her deepest insecurities. It is around this time that Genoa City begins its Christmas preparations. Lights and wreaths appear across the city, the Abbott Mansion is decorated for the annual holiday gathering, and Crimson Lights becomes a hub of warm drinks, cinnamon scents, and nostalgic music. But beneath the holiday atmosphere, tension pulses like an underground current. Victor, who has just returned from his mission in Los Angeles, begins tightening security around his family. He senses danger in the air, not from Audra, whom he sees as an annoyance but not a threat, but from Matt Clark, whose silence only makes Victor more wary. Matt is too strategic to disappear without plotting something catastrophic. Meanwhile, Nikki struggles to stay sober amid holiday stress, worried that Victor's renewed feud with Jack might escalate into something ugly, especially now that Victor plans to reclaim power at Jabot and crush any remaining influence Phyllis might hold. At the same time, the 20th anniversary celebration for Michael Baldwin and Lauren Fenmore sends emotional ripples through the community, reminding everyone of the fragility of relationships and the resilience required to endure decades of chaos in Genoa City. During the celebration, Audra watches Claire from across the room, studying her reactions, her body language, the way she clings to Kyle when she feels anxious. Audra notices every micro-expression, every crack in her composure, filing it away for strategic use. Claire feels the weight of Audra's gaze but forces herself to stay calm. Kyle notices Claire's discomfort and tries to shield her from Audra, but that only fuels Audra's anger. She hates being shut out. She hates losing control. And she especially hates the idea that Claire might receive empathy, support, or protection from anyone. Holden tries to calm Audra down later that night, warning her that whatever she is planning could go too far. But Audra dismisses him with a cold reminder that they both have secrets that could destroy their lives. Holden reluctantly agrees to help her stay hidden for a few days if she goes through with the plan, though he fears the fallout will be catastrophic. Meanwhile, Claire and Kyle grow closer as they investigate Audra's LA connections. They uncover old business partners, fraudulent contracts, and a string of men who were financially ruined after trusting her. Claire becomes determined to expose Audra before Audra can retaliate. She refuses to be victimized again. She refuses to let someone else weaponize her past. But Claire's growing fury only plays into Audra's narrative. The night Audra decides to execute her plan begins like any other, except for the unmistakable sense of destiny humming under her skin. She chooses a secluded walking path near the Genoa City Athletic Club, a place she knows Claire sometimes visits when she's upset, and plants an earring, a torn sleeve from her blouse, and a small smear of fake blood. She breaks her own phone and tosses it into the bushes, confident the detectives will find it after only a few hours of searching. She then drives out to Holden's cabin, leaving her car hidden under tree cover. She has enough food and supplies to last a week, and Holden promises to check on her every 2 days. But even Audra knows she cannot stay hidden forever. Once Claire is arrested, she plans to reappear as a traumatized survivor, claiming she was kidnapped by an unknown assailant but escaped in the confusion. She believes Claire's record will speak for itself, that the police will never doubt her story. But what Audra does not expect is how quickly the people of Genoa City react. Claire and Kyle notice Audra's sudden absence within hours. At first, Kyle assumes she is avoiding confrontation, but when Sharon mentions seeing police near the athletic path, Claire goes pale. Detectives begin asking questions, focusing almost immediately on Claire because the staged evidence points strongly toward her. Claire panics, insisting she hasn't seen Audra in days, but the detectives bring up the slap at society, the threats, the choking incident, the history in Oregon with Aunt Jordan. Claire spirals. She feels faint. Kyle steps in, refusing to let the police interrogate her without a lawyer. And that is when Michael Baldwin, fresh from his anniversary celebration, becomes involved. He volunteers to represent Claire, insisting that the police cannot jump to conclusions when there is no proof of harm. Meanwhile, Sharon becomes Claire's emotional anchor, reminding her to breathe, to stay grounded, to not believe the narrative Audra wants to create. Victor and Nikki learn about the disappearance and immediately suspect something is off. Victor does not trust Audra, but he also doesn't believe Claire is guilty. He orders his security team to conduct their own parallel investigation. Noah overhears part of the conversation and rushes to the ranch, worried for Claire's mental state. Claire breaks down crying when he arrives, confessing that she feels like her past is swallowing her again. But Noah assures her that the Newmans will not abandon her. While Claire struggles emotionally, Audra grows restless at the cabin. She hates hiding. She hates waiting. She thrives on attention, power, manipulation. Isolation is a prison of its own. She begins texting Holden with increasing irritation, demanding updates. Holden warns her to stay out of sight, because the police have already expanded their search. But Audra doesn't listen. She sneaks out early one morning to find better cell service and spots someone in the woods. She freezes, terrified that her cover has been blown. It's not police. It's Kyle. And he looks heartbroken, not angry. Kyle came searching alone, because something in his gut told him Audra was lying, and that Claire was being framed. He confronts Audra, demanding to know what she has done, but Audra refuses to admit anything. She claims she is hiding because Claire tried to kill her. When Kyle doesn't buy it, Audra becomes hysterical, accusing him of betrayal, of choosing Claire over her, of ruining everything. Kyle records part of the argument on his phone, not enough to prove guilt, but enough to cast doubt on her innocence. Holden arrives moments later, furious that Audra left the cabin. Audra lashes out at him too, screaming that everyone is turning against her. In her panic, she slips on wet leaves and injures her arm, leaving a real bruise, something the police might interpret as new evidence of Claire's attack. Holden urges her to return to the cabin, but Kyle threatens to call Victor and the police. Audra panics, throws a rock at Kyle, and runs deeper into the woods. By the time Holden catches up, she is gone. Now the situation becomes catastrophic. Claire is no longer just a suspect. She becomes the primary suspect in what now looks like a full-blown kidnapping case. Victor's private investigators find the staged evidence but also detect inconsistencies. Blood that isn't human, footprints that don't match Claire's, tire marks suggesting a pre-planned escape. Meanwhile, Audra hides in an abandoned maintenance shed deep in the woods, terrified, injured, and losing grip on her own plan. She realizes too late that she cannot control how others react, cannot control Holden's panic, Kyle's intuition, Victor's investigators, or the police timeline. Days pass and Audra begins to unravel psychologically. She imagines Claire finding her and finishing the job. She imagines police closing in. She imagines the entire scheme falling apart and her being arrested for fraud, obstruction, or worse. Claire, meanwhile, becomes steadier with each day of support from Kyle, Sharon, Noah, and even Nikki, who apologizes for once doubting her. When Kyle reveals the partial recording of his confrontation with Audra, Victor becomes convinced Audra is alive and hiding. He orders a massive search of the woods. And then it happens. A hunter discovers the shed. The police arrive. Audra is found, dehydrated, disoriented, panicked, and still clutching the fake evidence she intended to plant later. Her story collapses instantly. Claire is cleared. Kyle publicly condemns Audra. Holden attempts to flee but is arrested as an accomplice. And Audra, broken and shaking, is taken to the hospital, where she finally realizes the truth. Her attempt to destroy Claire has destroyed herself instead. But the fallout is only beginning, because her lies, her manipulation, her staged disappearance, and her knowledge of Matt Clark's dealings will set off an even bigger storyline that Genoa City will feel for months to come.